Nina, we've been exploring the term generative entrepreneurship as a way to stretch what the social entrepreneurship conversation to a next stage or a next level, a certain kind of deepening of our understanding of social entrepreneurship. And this reminds me that you published a book in the last year on leadership, and you've been working with the phrase regenerative leadership. So could you connect some of what you said about social entrepreneurship with what is cohering for you in the phrase regenerative leadership?
Absolutely. And there are several things that your question raises for me. It's such a good question. I believe that we have inherited definitions that are self-limiting in and of themselves. Leadership being one, in that we have inherited models of leadership that often, without even being conscious of it, we have a tendency to ascribe to and to measure ourselves against. And I would suggest that the model of leadership we've inherited from our culture is a heroic one. It's a solitary model. It's a model where someone takes on a huge task and basically drives themselves into the ground to try to see it manifest. And I think as I have grown older, I've come to understand that often there is some requirement of sacrifice in real leadership. I used to think we could do without it, but I'm not so sure anymore. But what's become apparent to me is that as I work with people who are leading change in all kinds of domains, they tend to show up exhausted and depleted. And it's partly because often they are trying to lead whatever kind of company or organization they are heading up. And they're also parenting, and they're also trying to, with whatever scraps of time may be left, take care of themselves. And we are living in an increasingly toxic world where I believe we have inherited a bias towards those aspects of our humanity that we associate with the masculine, and an implicit disbias, if you will, towards those aspects we associate with the quote feminine. And because of that, we all have become action freaks. We all have very long to-do lists, and in order to live up to our own standards, we have a tendency to drive ourselves terribly, terribly hard. And this is not a regenerative model. It's a model for burnout in whatever sector of society we may be working to bring change. I'm also a student of indigenous cultures, and I believe we have inherited models from a patriarchal culture and a capitalist culture that tend to be very linear and very focused towards growth at all costs. And for me, part of what I've learned from studying the living systems that Bioneers often produces and features is that those linear models don't work. They have brought us to the edge of human and ecological destruction at this time. And so an indigenous model, of course, is based on a circle rather than a line. And so regenerative leadership works with that principle that, like geese who migrate in a V shape, the lead goose, who takes the most wind resistance, cycles back when it's tired to be replaced by another goose to take that the beating of that wind resistance until the other lead goose is regenerated. And so, I feel as though part of the leadership model we have inherited is one which involves sacrifice to the point of complete depletion. And that's simply not viable. I think we're all in this work for the long haul. Knock on wood, if the earth doesn't shake us off first. And so taking care of ourselves and our community and those around us while simultaneously lifting up other leaders is really what I am seeing as the basics of a recipe for regenerative leadership. The other thing that I would add, Aftab, that I thought of when you were first describing the course is that social entrepreneurship implies that there is one priority, which is improving social conditions, to the intent of entrepreneurship. And really, I have come to understand that if we don't embed our social structures within a larger context of nature, of nature's life support elements, of what's good for the whole and equity, then really we are not dealing with the kind of systemic change that I believe is called for, which is really more about transformation than it is about change. What I love about the phrase generative entrepreneurship is that I do believe the earth is calling us to come up with ideas that are new and sometimes also ancient. And so what I have found is that the quality of generativity is one that often is undervalued when people talk about entrepreneurship. And generativity involves the capacity to pull something from the ethers or from an idea or from a dream or from an imaginal space into form. And that involves a very particular set of skills and capacities. So I'm excited for you to be naming it that.